Hello people, welcome to module 11. For this lab, I wanted to try building my own bash recon script. The idea was to automate some basic commands that I've been using for classes and CTF challenges. So instead of typing them out one by one, we are going to be building a single script that runs them all together and kind of uses like headings and subheadings to make it all readable. I'm still learning, so I'll be explaining each line as I go. That way, if you're at a similar stage to me, you can follow along and hopefully pick up a few new things. So let's begin by creating the script name. For this, we're just going to call it recon.sh, just a simple name, and give ourselves executable rights to this file. Okay, we're going to start by writing our shebang, as always, so that we can tell we're telling the system that we want to use bash to run this script. We're going to first begin by getting system information. So we're going to create a heading, system information, and that will print system information as a header. And then we will then get the hostname to start with and use command substitution. Okay, so that's the hostname, and then we will get the operating system type. So operating system, and then again, command substitution. We'll be using uname-o to get the operating system type, echo, and we'll get the kernel. And we will be using uname-r. Simple as that. And then we will lastly be getting the uptime. So uptime, and then we'll be using uname-p. Simple as that. So what this gives us is we get we get the header system information, we get the hostname of the device the operating system is using, the kernel, and the uptime. So simple as that. We're then going to move on to users. So we're going to use echo-e, and we're going to be putting a \n basically to make a new line for this header, and echo-e excludes the \n, and then we're just going to create pretty much the exact same thing, users, and then close that like that. We're then going to get the current user, so current user, and we'll be using who am I. So just like that. And then we are going to be getting all the other users that are on the system. So all users, and then we will use the cut command, cut, and then we're going to set the delimiter to a colon, because the file that we'll be cutting contains all the usernames, but they're separated by a colon. So we're going to get the first field, and we're going to target etc / passwd, because this file it contains all the users, all the user accounts, but the fields are, again, they're separated by colons. So we set the delimiter to a colon and select the first field so that it prints all the usernames in the file. So then we're going to come down, and we're going to create kind of like a subheader, and we're going to get the last logged in users. So again, \n. We're not going to be doing like the big equal stuff, because it makes it look like it's a new section when it's just the same. So what we're going to be running is we're going to use last. Last is a new command, so last reads /var/log/wtmp and shows the login history. We're then going to pipe it into head-n5, so we only see the first 5 lines. This is to avoid having way too much output, because if we were to last the whole file and not only show the first 5 lines, the output would be absolutely huge, and we'll be shortening the output. We'll also be using the nmap command to gather ports, so we'll be using a fast nmap later on as well to avoid using avoid outputting too much, so that the output is just, well, unreadable and harder to work with. Coming back though, we can actually use /-a instead, because we will, I was thinking about leaving it out because it's a little bit more simple, but adding that -a, it gives you extra information on where the logins actually came from. So we're going to be adding that and moving on to the next section now. In this section, we'll be getting network information. So this will be a new section. So we're going to dash in, and then we're going to create a new header. Okay. And then we're going to run IPA. IPA shows like all your IP information on this device. Lists all network interfaces, configuration, etc., etc. And then we're going to grep for inet. So that just filters for lines containing the word inet, which is the words that contain inet are the lines that have the IPv4 and IPv6 addresses on them. So simple as that. Then we're going to make a new section, a subsection of network information, and call it default gateway. And we will be using iproot. So what iproot does is it just shows the kernel's routing table, and then we will be, we're going to pipe that into grep. Oh my god, grep default, so that we just filter for the lines that contain default, which would be the default gateway. We are then going to create a new subsection called DNS servers. And we're going to begin by catting /etc resolve.conf. I'm pretty sure that's the file name, and I hope it is. So what this file contains is the DNS settings, and then we're just going to grep lines that start with name server, because filtering for lines that begin with name server will show the DNS servers in use. So that's, we can conclude network information, and then we will make a new section. And I spoke about this one already. We're going to do open ports, so we'll be using nmap. So make sure you have nmap installed. Again, you can check out in the description, there'll be a link to my GitHub, where I have full write-ups of every module and everything that you need to install if it's not mentioned in the video. So we are then going to begin with an if statement. So we're going to check if the system even has nmap on it. So if command -v nmap checks if nmap is available in the system path. Simple as that. And then we are going to silence the error outputs. If I remember it correctly, I believe it's an and symbol, then a 1. Then, so basically, if nmap is in the system path, then we will do a fast nmap, which is nmap-f, and then on our own system. Again, make sure you're scanning a system that you have rights to scan. If you don't have rights to scan that system, that can be illegal. So what we're saying is, if nmap is in the system path, then, and the dev/null stuff, that sends both standard output and standard error, basically just to a black hole, so it silences the output, and then it will run nmap if nmap exists. So we then need to make a condition to say if we don't have nmap, then we need something to say that nmap wasn't found. So we'll say nmap not found, and we'll say try sudo apt install nmap. We'll just literally put the name out. So do that, and then we'll exit 1. So that just puts in pretty much just an error message that will end the script because they don't have nmap, so we don't want to continue for now. So we'll then end the if statement. We'll come down again, and we will create a new section, echo-e, and this will be completely new. So we'll call it services. And what we're going to be using is we're going to use PS. You may remember it from module 8, PS-EO. So what EO does, so that -E, that shows all processes, and -O will show custom columns, which is what we will be doing now. So we will want to show the process ID, the parent process ID, command name and arguments, and we will get the memory usage and the CPU usage as well. So now that we have all of the columns we've specified that we want to see, we will use --sort, and then we're going to put equals, and then dash, and then you can put whatever section you want to sort by descending order. So by descending order, we'll be starting with memory. So then we're going to pipe that into just the head command. So if you just put head, it'll only show the first 10 lines. You don't have to actually specify how many lines. If you just put head, then it'll automatically assume the first 10. So we are then going to make our last section. And we're going to call it interesting files. Simple as that. So what we're going to do is we are going to look for files that you could use. So since this script is a Recon script, we're going to kind of scan the home directory for file types that could be useful or suspicious, especially if you're trying to get into a system. For example, nmap, you can use the ports. If there's any open ports, maybe FTP's open, that's pretty good to use. SSH, if SSH is open, which it will be open, because I already have SSH open on this device, but for you it might be different. But anyway, let's continue. So we're going to use the find command, and we're going to specify that we want to find amongst the home directory, and then we're going to use -type f. That basically just searches for regular files. And then we're going to write the group conditions, which is just a backslash and the bracket. And we're going to put -name. And then for our first one, we're going to start by looking for config files, so .conf. Simple as that. We're then going to put a -o, which is basically just, it means or, so we're going to the next condition and we'll be running the same thing again. We're going to look for log files as well, all files that end in .log. So if you don't know already, or if you haven't watched the previous modules, an asterisk is a wildcard. So it will basically search for any file name with anything before, any file names that end in .log, pretty much. Anything, the asterisk basically means anything and everything. So if you had a file called wood.log, it would be found. If you had a file called blue.log, then it would return blue.log and wood.log, because the asterisk is looking for anything before .log. Simple as that. And we're going to -o again. And the last one we're going to go for is files that end in .back. And then we're going to close the group conditions, and we're going to send the errors to the black hole to silence them, essentially. And we are going to just limit this output to 10. Okay, and then lastly, we are just going to echo -e, a confirmation message that will just say done. Okay, so let's go through this script one more time. Again, we begin by getting system information. So we get the host name, we get the operating system, the kernel, and the uptime since the last reboot. Then we run we create a new section for users. So we get the current user by running the who am I command via command substitution. And then we get the all users by searching the /etc/passwd file. We set the delimiter to the colon because each of the names, the usernames in this file, are separated by colons. So we set the delimiter to colons, and we get the first field, so that we get the usernames essentially. Then we go into last logged in users. We use last-a to search the /var/log/wtmp file, and -a gives us that extra information, and then we limit that to 5 lines output. Then we go into network information. We run IPA, which gives us basically just all, it lists network interfaces, configurations, IP addresses on this system. And then we grep for lines that start with inet, because these are the lines that contain the IPv4 and IPv6 addresses. Then we run iproot, and we grep default to get the default gateway. So iproot shows the kernel's routing table, and by running grep default, we just parse for the lines that start with default so that we get the default gateway, essentially. Then we cat the resolve.conf file, which contains DNS settings, stuff like that, and we grep for name server to get the DNS, because the lines that contain DNS start with the word name server. Then after that, we scan for open ports, so we check if we check if nmap is in the path. If it is, then we'll run a fast nmap, which scans only the top 100 ports, I believe, and this sends all the error output to nowhere, silences it. So, you know, if we don't have nmap or anything like that, for whatever reason it didn't work, then we won't get bombarded with error messages. Then we set a condition otherwise, which, thinking back on it, it might actually be better just to not end the script here. So for this line, for that line, it may just be better just to let the script run anyway, but leave that error message there, so that under the open port section we see, yeah, nmap not found, try sudo apt install nmap, and we don't have to, you know, the rest of the script will still run. Exit1 will stop the script, so by removing it, the script still runs onto the next section, which is services. So then we run ps-eo, which shows all, ps-e shows all processes, but -o shows custom processes, which in this sense we want the process ID, the parent process ID, the commands and the arguments, percentage memory, so percentage memory usage essentially, and CPU usage. Then we use --sort, and we set it to memory percentage so that we sort them by descending order, starting with memory. Then we just use head by itself. That shows only the first 10 lines, as to not bombard the output, because running the script will give us a lot of output, so we don't want to overload it. Running head by itself just assumes the first 10. Then we use, when we create a new section, interesting files, use the find command to search amongst the home directory for regular file types that are either anything before .conf, files that end in log or .back, and then we silence the error output, and we only show the first 10 lines, and then we echo done. Simple. So let's save it, and we will run it, and we will see if we have any errors to fix or if it runs perfectly, which it runs just fine. So let's go over our output here. So we start with system information. So we get the hostname MacZ, that's me. We get our operating system. We get the kernel version and the uptime, which is unknown for some reason. I'll have a look into that. When I was testing this lab, that didn't come up before, so it's new to see. So after looking into it, it's apparently because this is a virtual machine and not actually an operating system, so it can be quite hard to determine the uptime of the virtual machine. So if you're running a virtual machine as well and you get uptime unknown, it's normal. But in my other operating system that wasn't Debian, where I was testing this lab, I did get the uptime. So that's a bit strange. Maybe it's a permissions issue, or maybe something like that. I'll run this again using sudo to see if it changes anything at all. So current users is me. All users you can see. We got pretty much every single user. Simple as that. Last logged in users, you can see, yep, still logged in, so this is our session just now. Reboot, system boot, and you can see when I last logged in, July 28th, 11:13, probably testing. Network information, you can see we got all the lines that start with inet, so what we have is every IP address. So we have loopback, that is probably a separate IP address that is linked to my Ethernet cable. We got the IPv6 addresses as well. This is the localhost address that you can see it says host low, which means localhost. This is the IPv6 localhost address. That's the prefix there, the 128. Default gateway, you can see we have the default gateway here. We have a \n, so maybe I forgot to put a -e there. I'll have a look into that in a second. So you can see we have our DNS server open ports. We start a fast nmap, and we can see we have port 22 open and port 631. Cool. So right away, we know if SSH is open, we can try and SSH into the target, and we could compromise the device that way. Services, you can see all of the services here. So we have our process IDs, parent processes IDs, we have the paths, the commands, and the arguments essentially, and we have memory usage. For the GNOME shell, yeah, you're going to get a lot of memory usage and a good bit of CPU usage as well. For these, when it says 0.0, it's not actually using no CPU, it's just using so little. So it'd be like maybe 0.04, but it's only showing the first decimal space. And then we are scanning for some interesting files. It returned log files. Apparently couldn't find any .conf files or back files. Let's first have a look at why we are not getting what we want here. Okay, -E. We can also see a second error down here. We are missing a echo. Simple. So we're going to Control O, enter to save, and Control X to return to the terminal. And let's run the script using sudo. So we're going to get a little bit of a different output this time. Okay, let's have a look. It looks like nothing's really different. Okay, yeah, it looks about the same. We can see DNS servers now works, which is great. Current user is now root because we ran it as sudo, which means we are now the root user, but yeah. So essentially, all in all, this script automates manual commands, as all scripts do, but this one, specifically for Recon, you could use it, you could copy it, you could send it to somewhere, you can, it's simple, it's very concise, and it's very easy to edit. You can change things, you can add things. You could add more services if you wanted. You could literally just get rid of the O. You can modify it to your heart's content. As simple as that, essentially. So a pretty versatile script that you can take with you to a CTF challenge or wherever you're doing Recon again. And yeah, I want to thank you for your time and thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Feel free to check out the GitHub if you need any help at all. See ya.